So my name is Chris Glover. I'm the MPP for Spadina Fort York, and I want to welcome everybody to our Chinatown town hall. And I want to, before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee, the Ojibwe, the Anishinaabe, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. And I want to acknowledge the continuing presence of Métis and other First Nations peoples on this land. Let's see, so I am Chris Glover. I'm the MPP for Spadina Fort York, and today we're going to be joined on the panel with John Kiru, who is the director for the Toronto Association of Business Improvement Areas, Tonny Louie, who is the chair of the Chinatown Business Improvement Area, and Jessica Bell, who is the MPP for University Rosedale. Our purpose of this town hall is actually to give Chinatown business people the information that you need in order to reopen, and also to encourage consumers to patronize our businesses in Chinatown and our small businesses across the city and across the province, because small businesses provide 70% of the jobs in Canada. And now that we're in the recovery stage, we want to make sure those businesses successfully reopen. And that's what this town hall is about, to give you some information and to also have an opportunity to take your questions about what government supports through the pandemic have worked, which government supports have not worked, and what further support and information businesses in Chinatown need in order to reopen. So we are offering this town hall in English, Mandarin, and Cantonese. And I want to thank our translators. Lucia is our translator who's going from English to Mandarin. Shulin is translating in Cantonese. This has been, this is something new for us. And it's the first time we've ever offered a town hall in 3 languages. And I want to thank Touring Inc., which is the company that has set this all up. You're watching on a website. We're the panelists, we're part of a Zoom call. The Shulin and Lucia are broadcasting on YouTube. All this technology is being put together by Yash and Lucia from Touring Inc. So I want to thank them for providing the technology to do this in 3 languages today. I also just want to caution people, or just give a bit of a heads up to the listeners, that when we get into the questions, each of the panelists will be pausing, saying a sentence, and then pausing, and then saying a sentence and pausing, so that there's times for our translators to translate it into those other languages. So, and for the people watching, if you have a question, on your screen, you'll see a box where you can type in your question, and we will put those questions in the lineup. Okay, and I can see we've got a couple of questions lined up here already. So my first question is going to be to John Kiru. John, what are you hearing about from businesses, from small businesses, about how the pandemic is affecting them through?
Thank you, Chris. What we're hearing is that there's been a significant impact, not only in Chinatown, but right across the city. However, Chinatown has been hit significantly harder. While there are relief programs set forth by the governments, businesses in Chinatown have had significant challenges navigating these processes. That said, many businesses in Chinatown are optimistic that they will be able to make it through this, but will be left with significant expenses and debt that will take several years to make up from.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, John. And for anybody who's just tuning in right now, you've joined the Chinatown Town Hall, and I'm on our panel. We have John Kiru from TABIA, the Toronto Association of Business Improvement Areas. We've got Tonny Louie from the Chinatown BIA, and we've got Jessica Bell, the MPP for University Rosedale. And you may be wondering why John was pausing after every sentence. It's because we're doing this town hall simultaneously in 3 languages. And so we need to pause after each sentence just to allow our translators to translate. So Tony, let's hear from you. How has Chinatown been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic? And what are you hearing from businesses in your community?
Well, good morning, everyone. Well, first of all, I think Chinatown, like every other places in Toronto or in Ontario, we are all affected by the same problem. Only thing is that in Chinatown, a lot of the businesses are service-oriented, like restaurants and retailing, and it hits Chinatown pretty hard.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And now that we're in stage 2, you know, we just got the announcement Toronto's going to be entering stage 2. How can businesses best prepare to reopen? So I'll leave this question for you, Jessica. Oh,
you're on mute, Jessica.
Yeah. And I'll repeat the question. Now that Toronto is in stage 2, how can businesses best prepare to reopen?
Thanks for inviting me on this call, Chris, and hi, Tonny and John. So the Ontario government has released workplace guidelines to limit the spread of COVID-19 between workers and customers. These guidelines include everything from having hand sanitizer available to limiting the number of customers in a store, to allowing workers to stay at home or engage in shift work so they can avoid the TTC during rush hour, as well as limit the number of people in the workplace. That's a lot easier said than done if you are a restaurant or a small business that has a lot of customers and is front-facing, like many businesses in Chinatown. I can send you.
Jessica, I'm just going to ask you to pause and speak a little bit more slowly so our translators have an opportunity to translate. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We can share the guidelines that the Ontario government has released after this meeting and in the chat. We recommend that businesses implement these guidelines before they open. In addition, we do encourage businesses, if they can, to have, we do strongly encourage businesses to have workers stay at home if they are sick, and to have businesses pay their workers sick pay so they are not incentivized to work when they are unwell. This is something that we are looking at legislating. However, the Ontario government rules on this are more lax than we would like them to be.
Okay, that's good. Is that all, Jess?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So a few points there. One is to allow workers, if a worker's not feeling well, please let them stay home. Please keep them paid. People obviously need to still have their income, but this is something that we've been advocating for some time. Let's see, anybody else? Tony or John, how can businesses prepare to reopen?
Yeah, I'd like to hop in, Chris, if I can. I think stores can best prepare by being ready to meet the social distancing requirements that come with phase 2 opening. It's important to set your store up in such a way that it presents confidence and safety for the people that come in, so that they do feel safe. Unclutter your shop, especially the entranceway. Make it clear how many people are allowed into the store at any one time. And have cleaning products at the front door and through the store that people can use at any time to make themselves feel safe. Most importantly, make people feel safe. Wear a mask, have your staff clean frequently touched surfaces and areas, and be thankful to the visitors for coming to your store.
You know, I think those are important words, especially, you know, for inspiring confidence in the consumers. I know I've been into grocery stores where they have a guard out front They have the markers on the sidewalk for the 6-foot distancing. They only allow so many people in at a time. They have arrows about which direction you're supposed to walk in the aisleways. All the staff are wearing masks. They encourage the customers to wear masks. I think what you're saying is important for inspiring consumer confidence. And Tony, the question on the floor right now is, how can businesses best prepare to open in stage 2? Oh, Tony, you're on mute.
I think it is important. I think it's important to give the entire premise a cleanup, top to bottom, all the washrooms, all the entranceway, anything that has a surface area should be sanitized with sanitized agent. And also PPE should be readily available. If customer wants to have a mask, you provide one or sell them at $1 each. I know that you can get masks for about $27 for a whole box, or 50 now, the medicine mask. And also we were the Chinatown VIA at the very beginning. We bought about 200 dispensers and for businesses. I think as of today, we have given away maybe only 5 left. So every shop now got about, at the entranceway, a sanitizer. And also we have shields like this. We have purchased quite a few. And also these are a very good price, by the way, $2.50. And we give 2 of them away along with our customized Chinatown VIA mask.
Okay, nice. So you're actually, so if there's a Chinatown business operators that are listening here, they can reach out to the VIA, get those masks and the face shields. Is that correct,
That's right.
Tony?
That's right. We actually spend a lot of our time sourcing for PPE, and we have everything labeled, ready to go, including plexiglass, small, medium, and large size. And we have all the suppliers identified and in complete communication at all time with them.
Okay, and roughly how many businesses do you know of that are planning to reopen, Tony?
I think more or less, I think pretty well everyone is opening now, especially hair salon, because a lot of people haven't had a haircut in 3 months. And also a bar, I got people already knocking on my door and text me this morning about when are we open. I said at midnight, we're gonna do it, midnight moonshine.
Nice. Okay, yeah, just for people in the audience, Tony is the owner of Grossman's Tavern, and he's been the owner it's been in his family for 42 years now?
Since 1975.
75, so 45 years. Wow, okay, nice. I'm a patron of that place. I've had a few beers, especially in my university days there, and saw some great blues bands. Anyways, let's see, our next question is from the audience. They're asking, gentrification is a big problem in Chinatown. Can the province designate all Chinatowns in Ontario as heritage districts, protecting them from condo developments, for example?
Is that question for me?
I think we could ask you, and I think Jess will probably want to tap into this one too. Let me just finish the questions. Could the same be done for Little Indias, Little Jamaicas, Little Ethiopias, etc.? So the question is, can Chinatown and other cultural communities be designated as heritage districts to protect them from condo developments? Tony, do you want to start?
Well, as I recall, back in 1999, there was a Spadina South study from Queen to College Street. At that time, I submitted 2 petitions to OMB to upzone the density and also the height limits of Spadina Avenue. And the thing is, you got to encourage some development, because if it isn't, the whole place is going to go down. No one going to improve their property, and you're not going to attract good tenants. Going back 100 years, more than 100 years ago, everything along Spadina Avenue was shanties. So now we have the 3-story building, just like what you see on Danforth and Coxwell. They are no different in looks and appearance than all those buildings along the main street. So if the whole purpose of redevelopment is to encourage more population coming into the area. Without population, you have no business. You need to have consumers, okay? The main street has to survive.
Okay, thank you, Tony. This is an issue, like how do we preserve the character of Chinatown while allowing development to continue? Jessica, would you like to respond to that? And just remember to speak slowly for our translators.
And also to take me mute.
Yes.
I forgot last time. That's an excellent question. It's worth us exploring what is possible around designated areas like Chinatown as a heritage district. It's important to note that what is happening in Chinatown with gentrification is happening all across Toronto. And the Ontario government has limited the ability for neighborhoods to use heritage designation to stop large development. They did this with Bill 108. This issue has become even more urgent and profound since the COVID-19 pandemic, because small businesses are not able to handle the drastic loss in income. And many of them are facing bankruptcy or are at risk of closing down because they cannot afford their costs, especially rent. It's hard to answer this question slowly because there's a lot to say, but I want to give two responses in addition to the heritage piece. One is, it's very clear that small businesses in Toronto, including businesses in Chinatown, need support from the government during this time so they can survive. That includes—
And just pause there for a second, Jess. Okay.
Thank you, Chris. It's so hard.
It is.
That includes expanding the moratorium on commercial evictions. So it motivates landlords to take up the federal government's offer to subsidize rent. It includes moving forward with conversations around what better rent control could look like. It is complicated. And then making sure that property tax for small businesses is fair and doesn't price small businesses out of existence. That's the one piece. And the second piece is around development. I agree with Tony, we need development, but we need to make sure development is done right and doesn't price out the little person. We have a lot of concerns with the Ontario Municipal Board and its track record of making decisions that prioritize large condo development at the expense of a neighborhood. And we have a lot of respect for the city's compromise to allow for development, but to have height limits that are reasonable so that small businesses and small and reasonable residential can survive as well. And I'd be happy to share those details in the chat or with people who want additional information.
Yeah, and that's one thing too. For people who registered, we will be making a summary of our notes from this meeting and we'll be emailing them out to you. And with any question that we can't answer during the meeting today, we will try to get an answer and email that to everybody. The next question actually came to us in Chinese script, but it's been translated. So I'm not sure how good the translation is. It's from Google Translate. I am one of the merchants in a center. There is a hotel that used to be a quarantine center that is connected to the center. Is it safe for our merchants now? Because some shopping centers are connected to hotels. Are those shopping centers safe? And I don't know whether any of our panelists today feel comfortable answering that question. If not, we will get that, we can send an answer. Raise your hand if any panelist feels comfortable. No. Okay, yeah, we don't have a health specialist in our panel today, but we will try to get your answer. I would suggest that you reach out to the person who asked that question. I would suggest that you reach out to the Toronto Public Health, and they will be able to answer and tell you what safety precautions have been taken. Okay. And also the Chinatown BIA should be able to help you with that as well. And I hope that's fair for you, Tony.
Yes.
Okay. What is the City of Toronto planning to do to educate people that are visiting Chinatown is safe? So Jess, so how are we going to, and so let's make this question a bit bigger. How are we going to promote Chinatown businesses to the general public? And Tony, do you want to start?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the statistics on a daily basis on the number of infected person. If that number start going down, I think the general fear of the public will diminish. And that will go right across the board, not only in Chinatown, I think in all of Ontario, because soon if we have 0 cases, maybe in a month's time, everything will be back to normal. So, that's what we have to look at.
Okay, good. And Jess, do you want to talk about promoting Chinatown businesses?
Thank you, Chris. There is no question that Chinatown has been hit worst and first by the COVID-19 crisis. It is completely unfounded that Chinatown has a higher rate of COVID-19 than anywhere else in Ontario. Quite the opposite. We now know that the spread of COVID is being felt hardest in long-term care homes and in lower income and racialized neighborhoods and out of Toronto. In addition, it is being tracked closely.
Remember, sorry, Jess, sorry to interrupt, but just remember to pause after each sentence. Thank you.
It is so challenging. So it is important to remember that public health made a well thought out, careful decision to move to stage 2, and Chinatown is obviously part of Toronto, and it is, and they have assessed that risk, and it is no more dangerous or safe than anywhere else. So I think it is important as elected officials and people who are listening to promote Chinatown, visit Chinatown, promote businesses in Chinatown, because you're part of our community and we need to do what we can to help, and also challenge the stigma that did exist at the start, and that stigma is completely unfounded.
Okay. And John, do you want to talk about promoting local businesses across Toronto and what's being done or what's being planned?
Sure. I'll start by saying I think that the single most important message that needs to get out is that Chinatown, like every other community, is now open for business, and that people can once again enjoy the great offerings and ambiance that they are accustomed to when they visit Chinatown, notwithstanding some of the restrictions that are still in place. On a broader perspective, I can tell you that I'm a part of a subcommittee at the City of Toronto that is looking at the tourism initiatives and what can be done to revitalize some of the tourism opportunities that have been out there. It was mentioned earlier that Chinatown is definitely one of the primary tourist destinations, and those efforts are in place. That said, I think the BIA, with support of the city, can definitely start promoting Shop Local and Shop Chinatown as a destination and an opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll just respond to this question as well. part of the reason that we've organized this town hall is to promote Chinatown and to get people, as Jessica said, Chinatown was hit first and worst by this pandemic. All of our small businesses across the city are struggling and suffering because of the pandemic. And these businesses, especially the street front businesses, the storefront businesses, are the core of our community. And they're the businesses that give our community its character. So we want them to be come out of this successfully. We want to support them. We want to maintain the character of our community. So I would encourage anybody who's watching to support your local businesses in this reopening stage. We're finally to stage 2. We're finally starting to reopen. Please support your local businesses. Let's keep them, help them to bounce back. And Jess, you wanted to add something?
Thank you, Chris. The Ontario government is moving forward on committee hearings to allow the members of the public to talk about what economic recovery should look like. That includes businesses that support the tourism sector, like Chinatown. I will send information on how people can provide comment to the government, so government funding can hopefully go to promoting and supporting businesses in Chinatown.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So we'll share that out with the summary for everybody who signed up for the town hall today. We'll share that out with the summary. Our next question is there any government stipulated number of feet for social distancing? And I'll answer that. It's 6 feet, 2 meters. So you should be at least fingertip to fingertip with your arms outstretched from anybody else at any time. And it's also important to wear a mask. You now have to wear a mask on the TTC. And as Tony was saying, the masks are available now for sale in a number of places. There's a number of people who've been sewing masks. So please get a mask. If you are wearing a reusable mask, every time you go out, you come back in, wash your mask. I've been doing my own mask, just hand washing it, and then I just hang it up, and by the next time I'm going out, it's ready. So I would highly recommend that everybody wear a mask. It's not mandated to wear a mask except on the TTC, but it does reduce the spread of this virus. So it is helpful. The epidemiological studies show that it does reduce. So the next question, for the restaurant, is it open to the outdoor restaurant or to the indoor? So are restaurants allowed to open indoors or just outside? And do I need to apply for permission to open my restaurant outdoors? If there is no parking lot in the surrounding area, how can I define the area where I can be an outdoor restaurant? Okay, open, and I apologize, this was a Google Translate, so it's a little awkward, but opening the outdoor restaurant still allows guests to enter the room. So this person obviously has an outdoor space near their restaurant. They're wondering, are they allowed to open their indoor seating? And what are the stipulations for opening outdoor seating? So
I'll jump on that, Chris, if I can. So the phase 2 is simply outdoor seating. We are still not in a position to deal with indoor seating. So it is simply for outdoor seating.
Okay, that's good.
The City of Toronto has also implemented a Cafe TO program, which uses public property that could be made available to a restaurant to move a patio to a curbside or a boulevard space. Yes, you will need to apply for that. I would recommend that they reach out to Cafe TO, and all the details are listed there. And I also know that the BIAs have been talking to their members to submit a wholesome application so that it could be expedited.
Okay, that's good. And this raises one of the questions, and this will be a question for you, Tony. Part of the reason we are offering this town hall in 3 languages is because some Chinese community members and some Chinatown business owners feel more comfortable in Mandarin or Cantonese. So this person, if they're looking for Cafe TO information, how does a Chinese, a person who feels more comfortable in Mandarin Cantonese, how do they access that information? And don't forget to go off mute, Tony.
I think the best way is to contact the BIA office in Chinatown, 287 Spadina Avenue. The girls should be able to help you with the actual application.
Okay, that's great. So that's something else we'll put down. We'll put down the contact information. Let's see, Chinatown is located in the center near Toronto General Hospital and Western Hospital on University Street. Will the new COVID patients see the doctors, and will it affect the safety of Chinatown? Does the government have any plan to guarantee the safety and stability of Chinatown? Okay. So again, this is a health-related question, and we're talking more about businesses. So I don't know if we can answer that question today. What we will do is we'll get an answer for you, and we'll put it in the summary notes that come back. Okay, but I can tell you that the government has been working with epidemiologists to plan the opening of stage 2. And so that the proximity of the hospitals should not be a factor. And there should be instructions given to any patients, especially any patient who may suspect that they have COVID-19. They should not be going shopping or anything like that. Okay. Let's see. Okay, the next question. Can you speak to what actions the province is taking to counter anti-Asian and anti-Chinese sentiment? Xenophobic notions that Chinatown and Asian peoples are responsible for COVID-19. Yeah, okay, so what actions is the province taking to counter anti-Asian and anti-Chinese sentiment? Jessica, can you take that question?
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, the Ontario government is not doing enough to tackle the rise in racism and anti-Asian racism in Toronto. Racism has been on the rise since the COVID.
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that, Jessica? You cut out.
Racism has been on the rise since the COVID-19 pandemic struck. Anti-Asian racism has led to people in Chinatown and in other parts of Toronto being subject to harassment, insult, and in some cases violence. That is simply unacceptable. Racism in all its forms it has no place in Toronto and Canada. I can tell you what we are calling for, what we are calling for the Ontario government to do. One, we have been calling for the reinstatement, the return of funding to the Anti-Racism Directorate, so racist acts can be investigated properly. We are calling for instances of racism to be properly and thoroughly investigated by the police. We fully support work that is being done by the Chinese Canadian community to track instances of racism, so the government and the community is aware that this is a systemic problem. They are not one-off instances. We are calling also for more anti-oppressive education in our schools and among our police and other institutions, so people can better understand what racism looks like, can stop themselves from behaving in a racist way, and can stop others from behaving in a racist way. It is going to take all of us.
Thank you. Yes, and I just want to go ahead, John.
Yeah. I was just going to chime in. Look, I think the reality is, as Jessica indicated, it's systematic, it's out there. There is no denying it. And I can speak from my family perspective. We've experienced the exact same thing. My son is married to a Chinese girl, and we have a wonderful granddaughter that has clear Asian features. They have been singled out on the street and in gas stations during this pandemic as the source of the pandemic. Society has a long way to go in dealing with this sort of thing. Just look at what's been happening the last few weeks across the world as a whole, and here in Toronto as well. It's not going to be resolved anytime soon, and maybe not during our generation, but it will take people like my son and his family to move us in the right direction.
Okay. Yeah, and Tony, did you want to speak?
I personally have not experienced too much in that regard, but generally speaking, I think the attitude and the tone of voice has changed, and that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll just chime in here too. When I first got the reports from some of the residents that they had been harassed on the street, I was absolutely appalled. There's no place for bigotry. There's no place for harassment in Canada. You know, the motto of the City of Toronto is that diversity is our strength. It is absolutely our strength. Part of the reason that we have generated the wealth that we have is because of the diversity of peoples who have landed on these shores and continue to contribute to our economy and to our society. And the Chinese community, the Asian community have made huge contributions over the last 150 years to our country. And that should be recognized. And to the bigots who are out there, stop doing what you're doing. To all the people who have been harassed, my humble apologies for that. We are standing with you. We are absolutely appalled by the actions, and we will fight against racism and bigotry and harassment on the streets. Okay. Our next question is, let's see, so Chinatown, it's about CCTV cameras that were installed in the Chinatown community. The residents are saying that there wasn't enough notification about them going up. And let's see, the province in 2019 provided Toronto Police with $3 million to double the number of CCTV cameras. Let's see. So can anybody comment on the CCTV cameras? Does anybody have any information about where that's at or what's been happening?
Well, in Chinatown, we have a community group opposed the camera at Spadina and Dundas. But I think they are based on privacy issue. But I think in view of all the crime that's committed, all the B&E and all that in Chinatown, it's best that we should have the cameras, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And there's no stronger evidence than capturing videos of what happened. And look around the world today. If it wasn't for video, we wouldn't have what happened in the state today, the last few weeks.
Okay, and so have you had an increase in B&Es or other crimes in Chinatown during the pandemic?
Yes, we have a lot more B&E, and also we have people wandering around, doing some minor mischief. For example, I'm getting more scratch on my car than ever before in the last 3 months. Not a big scratch, but just scratch from people walk by.
Yeah.
For the simple reason there aren't enough people out there to keep an eye open on these petty crimes. So yeah, it has been increased.
I'm sorry to hear that. Okay. Let's see. Ooh, just looking for the next question. Do we have any sense of how many Chinatown businesses permanently shut down because of the pandemic and the lockdown? Tony?
So far, I don't think we have that many. Maybe a handful, but it's hard to tell. We have to wait and see. because this is only what has happened in the last 3 months. Going forward, in the next 3 months, then we're going to find out whether people still have the staying power to be in business.
Yeah. Okay. And what should customers know about Chinatown businesses? You know, is there anything new or different coming up? What's the reopening looking like? Tony, do you want to take that?
Okay. For the last year or so, we have a lot of young entrepreneurs coming into Chinatown. Things like fast food and particularly bubble tea. And so we have some new energy coming into the area. And I think even during this troubled time, some of them are still opening, except few that just closed down because they limit their loss at 25% of the rent. No labor loss, no product loss, no sale loss, only 25%.
Okay. Oh, I'll pause you there for a second, Tony, because I've just been given a note that the translators need a bit more time.
All right.
Okay. But it's interesting what you're saying about the bubble, you know, the young entrepreneurs moving into Chinatown.
That's right. I think they are very, very good at doing what they're doing. And I think that they will continue the old Chinese tradition in Chinatown, because all the old guards are pretty well done. Most of my dad's friends are all, make friends with God. So, so we need someone to take over. Right.
No, it's great that there's another generation moving into Chinatown of young entrepreneurs. It's one of the highlights of the city of Toronto is visiting Chinatown. I'm looking forward to getting back in there and doing some shopping. The restaurants are fantastic, and the shops just have the most interesting things that you cannot find anywhere else. So it is a real jewel in the city. Let's see, the next question. What should someone do if they have been a victim of anti-Asian harassment or discrimination? And there's a few things that you can do. And does anybody want to take this? I've got one response. Does anybody? I'll start with my response. So the Chinese Canadian National Council on their website has a reporting form. And it's very important that if you have been the victim of harassment, that you fill in that form so that they can keep the data on this and keep a record of where this is happening, how often it's happening, so that at the city level, at the provincial level, at the national level, we can plan a strategy to stop this. And so if you have been the victim of harassment, please report to the Chinese Canadian National Council website. There's a reporting form there. We need to amplify your voices and get government action and also community action to stamp this out. Okay. Let's see. Oh, what part can teachers play in educating our children about COVID-19 and discrimination? Raise your hand if you would like to chime in this one. We were planning more for business-related questions. As a former high school teacher, Jess, do you want to talk this one? Go ahead, Jess.
I'll be very brief. The fact that you're asking that question means that you're already well on the way there. It depends how old children. It depends how old the students are that you're teaching. It is very useful to educate students about the Chinese Canadian community in Ontario and Canada, and their history and role in building the country. And then also it can be useful, I think, to share that the discrimination that is happening now during COVID is, it has happened before in SARS. So it is useful to teach about the history discrimination and why it is not acceptable. So there's two pieces there. Chris, as a teacher, I'm sure you have more to add.
You know, I think, I mean, there's things that teachers do individually in their classroom. There's things that schools do and that school boards do. But I think the biggest lesson against harassment is just celebrating our diversity in our classrooms. And this is why I'm such a strong supporter of our publicly funded education systems. I actually got involved 20 years ago fighting cuts to public education when my kids were in elementary school. And I fought against it, not only because I wanted all children to have access to education, but Ontario's public schools are the places where our children from all of our different backgrounds, they get to go there, they study together, they play together, they become friends. And that is the biggest lesson in celebrating diversity that you can possibly have. It's just everybody, all these kids from all these different backgrounds going to the same school and becoming friends. And that is the biggest antidote to future harassment and xenophobia. Let's see. And so I've got one more question. What will the government be doing to support Chinatown businesses in the reopening? Or if we asked a similar question before, actually, let's change this question a little bit. What can we encourage our community members to do to support Chinatown businesses in the reopening? And we'll go through the entire panel, and we're almost out of time anyway, so this can also be for the panelists. This is your opportunity to also wrap up and give any final thoughts. So how do we as community members, as government, support Chinese businesses, Chinatown businesses, and all of our businesses across the city in reopening? Okay, John, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Chris. An interesting approach may be that, look, while we do have collective initiatives where the city will be trying to drive people back to their local communities and, you know, in a way to assist in controlling the spread of COVID, whether there is another phase or anything else. So there will be definitely a concerted effort in driving people, keeping them local, shopping local, etc. BIAs, part of their role is to promote and market the area that they represent. And I'm sure that the BIAs will be doing their effort, including Chinatown BIA, to remind people that Chinatown is open. What could be done in addition to that is each and every one of the businesses within the city, within Chinatown BIA, will be doing their own marketing. Many are active on social media. Many are doing advertising in the community paper, etc. Yeah. Take it upon yourself.
John, sorry, I'll just remind you to speak a bit slower for the translators.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So as an independent business person, you are going to be doing advertising. You're going to be active on social media. You will be doing initiatives out there to promote your business. Take the opportunity to promote the entire neighborhood at the same time. You know, so-and-so business proudly located in Chinatown BIA, where you can visit other stores. So expand the message of a single advertisement to include the entire community. Be a proud member of the Chinatown BIA so that when people come, they can enjoy the entire offering of the community you're in.
Okay. Great. And Tony, how do we support Chinatown in reopening?
Okay, I think first of all, we have to look into some kind of a infrastructure improvement or building of some new infrastructure in Chinatown, such as the China Gate, maybe a cultural center, maybe a nursery, school, babysitting facilities to bring a little bit more of a community living in this area, other than $5 soups and $2 slippers. We need to we need to create some kind of a living condition here that people find this place to be unique, and that's a starter. And number two, we have to look into minimizing all these nuisance crime that we have, such as B&E, panhandling, auto break-in, and simple gathering of people in front of various stores all day long. And these are the things that I think would encourage more people to come into Chinatown, because people don't want to be harassed or to see someone yelling and screaming on a daily basis, or petty thefts, taking merchandise from fruit stands and t-shirt shops and all that. So I think that's the first start, infrastructure.
Okay. You know, I think, yeah, that infrastructure. And I think as more people are on the streets, that kind of problem will disappear or be drastically reduced. Just having people on the streets generates a better environment, a safer environment, and a more intriguing environment for everybody. We are social animals, and the pandemic has been difficult for all of us to maintain this social distancing, and we love being out with people. So, you know, even though we have to do it in restricted ways in stage 2, I am really looking forward to getting back to Chinatown, to patronizing some of the restaurants, although I've been doing that a little bit through the pandemic. I always find that I eat healthier when I shop at the vegetable shops in Chinatown, just because, you know, you come back with a bag full of vegetables, and that's the best thing for you to eat. Anyways, I see Jessica's had to step away from the call, but I want to thank John. I want to thank Tony. I want to thank Lucia. Oh, Jessica, do you want to give wrap-up remarks?
Thank you. I don't know what happened with the video.
Okay.
I think it's also important to remember when we're talking about helping small businesses that we make sure the Ontario government does its fair share. That means expanding the moratorium on commercial evictions so small businesses can hang on and recover. And then expanding support for small businesses as we move into the economic recovery phases. Some businesses are going to need some financial help. In addition to promotion, the Ontario government should be there for them so that they can grow.
Yeah, and there's just one more thing I'd echo from the provincial government. They've offered deferrals on property, health, and other taxes, and those deferrals have been piling up, and the government needs to give forgiveness to businesses for the period of the pandemic, because businesses can't just have a mountain of debt that they're facing as they are reopening. And I'm just going to say we got a message from Friends of Chinatown, and they said they would like to have been part of this panel. And to the Friends of Chinatown, you know, thank you for reaching out to us. We initially geared this towards business owners. That's why we had Sean and Tony from the BIAs to talk, but we're really looking forward to working with you. We will get in touch with you, and, you know, working especially with engaging the youth in the community. So to the Friends of Chinatown, we'll be reaching out to you. For everybody else, we will be sending out a summary of the meeting, our summary notes, to everybody who signed up. And again, I just want to thank our panelists, John Kiru, Tonny Louie, Jessica Bell. I want to thank our translators, Lucia and Shulin. And I want to thank our tech support from Turing Inc., Yash Paliwal, and Richa Parikh. So thank you all for everything, and have a wonderful day, everybody. And shop Chinatown.